Welcome one and all to another episode of the With the Homie Review Anime Edition. This episode will be discussing the only televised anime series from the world-famous anime director Satoshi-Kon, Paranoia Agent. Paranoia Agent is about a social phenomenon which occurs in a small city in Tokyo, Japan. The first character introduced, Tsukiko, is basically the modern-day Yuko Shimizu. And if you have no idea who that is, then you're in the same boat as me. She was actually the original creator of Hello Kitty. Tsukiko is a character designer responsible for creating the immensely popular pink dog, Moromi, which took Japan by storm. Since the realization of her masterpiece, she works tirelessly day and night in order to attempt to strike gold twice. Overworked, stressed, anxiety-ridden, and sleep-deprived, she walks home one night only to be attacked by a small boy on rollerblades. Later, two detectives are assigned to oversee her case. They begin to suspect that Tsukiko is lying about the attack, until they receive word of a second victim in the small town. They begin to understand and see how all this commotion and trouble could be caused by a juvenile serial assailant named Little Slugger. The plot relays between a large cast of people affected in some way by the phenomenon, either physically, mentally, emotionally, or even metaphysically. As each new character comes along and becomes focus of the story, details are revealed about their secret lives and the truth about Little Slugger begins to come to light. This is one of my personal favorite animes of all time, and it's because I've yet to see another anime like it. Like some of Satoshi Kon's other works, it's at times a very somber and depressing story that relies heavily on existentialism and the examination of the human condition. There are a lot of heavy topics discussed, from suicide, technological dependence, bullying, morality, work-life balance, mental health, society structure and the expectations that come with them, failure, regret, and the remembrance of things past. It is a very heavy anime that I feel one must take their time watching. It's not a piece that you can really binge unless you've seen it already. But for many first-time watchers, you may want to sit back and digest a single episode and the philosophies and concepts within it before moving on to the next one. In terms of animation, it was way ahead of its time, taking some risks and being very self-aware of its objective. Hailing from what I consider to be one of the golden ages of anime, the early to mid-2000s, and running at the same time as many greats like Samurai Champloo, Inuyasha, Code Geass, FLCL, Full Metal Alchemist, Death Note, Monster, and Bleach, to name a few. In terms of animation, it stands above them all. When watching this anime, one can tell the care and detail that went into the preparation of every episode. Each scene unfolds delicately and pays close attention to the framing and perspective. It's almost like it was shot with a camera as opposed to drawn and animated. I wouldn't find it hard to believe if this was originally intended to be a film. With a mix of traditional anime standards and some CGI elements, it manages to create a unique Satoshi-Kon feel that resonates with some of his other films. Animation is a strong focus of this anime, being used as a device to connect with each character from an individual perspective. In each episode, there are differences in animation styles that are exclusive and unique to that character. For instance, Tsukiko's doll Moromi uses some slight CGI elements to act as her subconscious and come to life and interact with her. Yuichi's character, when anxious and worried about the opinions and thoughts of others and how they might affect and interfere with his social standing, ends up projecting his fears and thoughts into a strange, childlike, hand-drawn animation style that manifests into his own reality. Within Paranoia Agent, each character's perception of reality is a malleable, transformable thing that can be molded and influenced through their emotional and physical state as well as their personal self-consciousness. This adds a one-of-a-kind layer of depth and creativity to a series that is already ripe with metaphors, social commentary, artistic expression, and symbolism. Within its story, Paranoia Agent contains some of the most lifelike characters I've ever encountered in an anime series, all with real-world problems and issues that in reality would probably need some professional attention. It almost feels as if some of these characters are actually real people and exist somewhere out there, that we're just seeing a glimpse of their lives, that after we're done sitting down and watching and go about our days, spending time with family, making dinner, or even walking the dog, the very mundane and trivial aspects of life, that they also do much of the same and continue with their own. The music is definitely the underdog in this series, and it has quite the range in terms of feel and measure. It perfectly captures the haunting aspects as well as the paranoid. The calm and serene and almost at times comedic feel of the series. Even from the opening theme, it relies more on vocals to create the atmosphere as opposed to actual instrumentation. Scenes masterfully implement slow-paced sound effects or amplified noises, paying close attention to even the flick of a Zippo lighter or the hum of locusts in the summer light to build tension. It makes the viewer focus more on the character and their situations than what's actually happening in front of their eyes. The pace of the instrumentation can vary drastically. Some scenes include no music at all, the next buzzing with the rush of drums and cymbals, or paranoia-inducing electric beats, the slow dancing of jingle bells and the distant whimpers, to the somber hum of organs and tender piano notes accompanied by string orchestration. There's a depth of atmosphere and personality to the sound and composition of the series that rivals some of the greatest films and television scores of all time. The opening sequence is beautifully haunting and cheerfully bleak, and to this day it remains one of the most prominent intros from my childhood that I can always think back on. The contrast that Satoshi-Kon draws between the music and the animation with just minor details is masterful. Right away you'll notice the unsteady yet upbeat pace of the orchestration, the ominously pleasant howling of the vocals, the hustle and bustle of streetcars whizzing by, and hurried people rushing about in a blur. It might make one think that what they were about to watch was happy-go-lucky, some slice-of-life piece. But on first watch, I had no idea what the show was going to be about. I didn't even truly pay attention to the opening sequence, but after rewatching it, I quickly noticed how the cast of characters one by one take center stage in the middle of the screen, their faces pinched upward, silently cackling in a demonic, almost maniacal fashion, to backdrops of buildings turned to rubble, rain-flooded streets overtaken with a sea of cascading waves, barren wastelands, vacant dance halls and dining rooms, streets littered with mountains of garbage and refuse, to the entire skyline lit with a massive nuclear explosion. This may be kind of dark, but in every scene of the intro, I noticed it's almost as if after the first few seconds of what the viewer is exposed to, each character goes on to die. Two characters get washed away in a massive wave after standing in flooded waters up to their knees. Another has stood perched on the edge of a skyscraper laughing at themselves, as if they're prepared to jump. One character is even drowning, completely submerged in an ocean of water, the air bubbles escaping from her mouth with each lunatic laugh, until the viewer themselves is eventually smashed by the series' baddie, Little Slugger. This is a very dark anime that draws much of its inspiration from the dreary and almost funeral aspects of life, and you can definitely surmise that from its introduction. Satoshi-Kon passed away a little over 5 years after the release of the series, and I personally feel the anime world has suffered greatly from his death at the young age of 46. If you're familiar with some of his other works like Perfect Blue, Paprika, and Tokyo Godfather, then you can expect the same magical realism, surrealist, and fantastical elements out of Paranoia Agent. The writing is intelligent, imaginative, and engrossing. It is a nearly perfect examination of the anxiety of modern life and the stresses that accompany coming to grips with society and its norms. It is a very real and almost hopeless show, but it manages to handle rather depressing moments that occur in everyday life in either a comedic and inspiring way or with an honest and forthright approach that leaves the viewer less morose or dejected and more pensive and contemplative about their own life and troubles. If you're just now hearing about this anime for the first time, I hope I've managed to convince you to give it a watch. Sadly, you can only purchase the series on DVD. It's actually unavailable on all streaming platforms. So get ready to add that to your Amazon carts. Or, you can pirate it illegally. Let me remove that part. And prepare to feel the hairs on your neck stand up, to have your blood boil over with anger, cry, laugh, whimper, reflect on your own life and all your terrible decisions, and, I guess, smile at all that is Paranoia Agent. This is your homie Potter, and this has been another episode of With the Homies Review, Anime Edition. And I'm giving Paranoia Agent 9 golden baseball bats out of 10.